Hail, and welcome to Heathen Hearth, the show where we explore recipes inspired by the historic and ethnographic imagination. This week is a mashup of 3 different cuisines: Ethiopian, Indian, and Scandinavian. We're making bread, we're making Injera Dosa, Viking style. I like a lot of different types of cuisines, but 3 of my favorite probably have to be Ethiopian, Indian. Of course, there's many different Indian cuisines, but generally Indian food, as well as Scandinavian cuisine. So this week, what I'm going to be doing is taking some things that I've noticed about all 3 of those cuisines. And one of the things that I have noticed that they share together is the fact that they have fermented bread products. Not just regularly fermented, but very sour fermented bread products. Also too, all of these cuisines are big on flatbreads as well, or pancake-like foods. And so what I did was I took these 3 of these cuisine traditions and I rolled them up all into one to make some Injera Dosa Viking style. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, the Ethiopian cuisine is almost always eaten with a spongy bread made from teff flour, and teff is a grain native to the highlands of Ethiopia. And it has a very delicious sour sort of flavor. Nowadays, and especially in restaurants and so on, you're not getting 100% teff flour. It's usually wheat, sometimes barley flour, etc. All of those are traditional in Ethiopia as well, but the teff is really what gives it the unique flavor. And it's almost like a crepe, but it's extremely spongy, a bit more what the British would call a crumpet, and it's a large sort of pancake that's used to pick up and eat food, much like a chapati would in Indian cuisine, or you might have to wrap food or eat food with when you're having Mexican food and you have those tortillas in a separate box, a little box on the table to eat as well. Then we have Indian cuisine, which has chapatis, etc., which are a lot like flour tortillas you might be familiar with. Now, however, there's in South Indian cooking a tradition where you make a batter from urad dal, also called in the Caribbean or parts of Africa, mungo peas. These are a pulse that is fermented first, and then it's usually mixed with rice to make a pancake. And this too has a lot of bubbles in it. It very actively ferments as well. In Scandinavia, you have particular types of rye bread, which are very, very heavily fermented. They're usually cooked as a loaf, however, but there is a pancake tradition as well. And if you're not making a pancake with eggs, then what you can do is just use this same starter that you would normally use to make rye bread to make a pancake. Now, it's not very common as a recipe in sort of the modern day, but you can see how the bread traditions especially during the Viking Age, leaned towards flatbreads. And so it's possible that they had these types of sour pancakes as well. There was a lot of cooking implements for creating pancake type products or flatbreads, and there were lots of evidence of dough troughs as well as the rye grains. So what I did was I took all of these together and we're going to make a bread. Now, I have to give a shout out to the channels which inspired me. There is LifeStyleWithPri as well as Sandhyas Kitchen, and on those YouTube channels, they're Indian food cooking shows which focus on the Instant Pot, and that's where I learned how to make and ferment batter in the Instant Pot. I learned how to refine my Danish rye bread recipe by looking at the channel kvalifood, and kvalifood describes how to make a sourdough starter with rye. And that's a very useful piece of information. And then there is the YouTube channel Adane. I'm not sure how to pronounce it exactly, but they have one of their videos has closed captioning in English, which is excellent. And they show you how to make traditional injera. Now, it's a much more involved process than the one I'm going to be using, but it's very interesting. So all of those channels, I really recommend you check out and subscribe to and view, because I like them a lot. I'm going to put links to all of them in the description of this video. So without further ado, let's get cooking. It's been 8 hours now since the urad dal has been soaking. Basically it was overnight. It's almost not quite doubled in size. This stuff's also called mungo beans or mungo peas. It has a really nice sort of grassy smell to it. It's not what you'd expect. So I'm gonna dump that in the blender because we need to blend it to a fine consistency. So this is just to create the batter. Now I have a great blender. It's the Vitamix. It's the one that people use for raw foods diets and so on. It costs a lot of money, but it is very good. There's a link down in the description if you want to check it out. But if you have your own blender, you can do that. Of course, historically, these types of breads would have been ground in a mortar and pestle. So if they were soaked whole grains, then they would have been ground that way. Or they would have been ground as seeds and flour into flour first, right? So let's try that. I've got some water here. I'm just going to just add enough so that it forms a batter. I don't want to add too much water because of course you can't take the water out of the batter afterwards. Let me just take a look here. I'll just use this. I'm going to be leaning over like this. It'll be a bit weird, but... I've got one little piece that's stuck to the side, so push that back in. Now it has a really nice consistency, a bit like tahini sauce. I think that's right. We'll stick that one back in. All right, so now I'm going to be adding the other ingredients. I have here teff flour. This is one of the smallest grains in the world. It is a grain that originated in Ethiopia. And it's still used there, and this is used in Ethiopian cuisine. And I have to measure 3 of these because we're using 3/4 cups. Whoa, oh well, a little bit more than 3/4 cups. Now I have here my sourdough starter. This I made with rye grains. Not rye grains, I should say rye flour. And it's a half and half mixture, 1 to 1. So it's 1 part water and 1 part rye grains, rye flour, geez. I put this out, I woke it up yesterday. I usually keep it in my fridge. And what I did was I took it out, brought it to room temperature, added, I think it was a half, you usually add about a 1/4 cup, but I think I added a 1/2 cup this time so I'd have more. 1/2 cup of rye flour and 1/2 cup of water and just stirred it and left the lid on lightly. And then that way I have, it was bubbling and fermenting. So, and I'll use 6 of these. Okay, I'm going to blend this again. I will probably need water, but I don't want to add too much. Now, I'm definitely going to need more water. I should have to add about the same amount as I've added in teff flour. Okay, now, so I think that's about the right consistency. The 3 different traditions of pancake use different consistencies. So I think I'm going to go for the thinner, which is in the dosa style. Because injeras are probably the thickest. Well, and then the European sourdough pancakes are often even thicker, especially when they're using wheat flour. They don't usually make them with rye flour. So I think I'll go with that thickness then. The next step is pretty easy. You just take that batter that you made and you put it in your nice clean instant pot. Now, one of the things you have to remember here is not to overfill your instant pot, because this will be rising. I'm just trying to scrape out as much as I can so I don't waste it. All right, that should be good. And I had some extra water here to get a little bit of the extra stuff off the sides. I don't want to use too much though, because it's fairly liquidy already. You know what? I don't want to get any more liquid in that. So I'll just shut the top. And what you want to do is leave it to venting, not sealing mode. And all you have to do is set it to yogurt. And it automatically puts it on 8 hours, and we'll let that ferment for 8 hours, and then we'll be ready to make our breads. The wonderful beep, the knowledge that your food is on its way. It's been almost 6.5 hours now while our batter has been fermenting. So let's open the pot and see how it looks. Oh, it smells very good. It smells, it actually doesn't smell as alcoholic as the original rye. You can see there's lots of bubbles in it. And let me just touch it with a ladle here just to see how thick it is. And it has significantly thickened up. So, looks like it's worked. Let's see if we can make some breads out of these. Have you ever noticed that the first pancake you make never turns out properly? Well, that was the case here too. So this is near the end of the cooking actually. So you see how there's lots of great bubbles, and there, a perfect pancake, perfect bread. I scraped it out. So what you do in between is you take out little bits, and there goes in some clarified butter. You notice the pan is ripping hot and holds a lot of heat. You want something like that. You can see there's a bit of grease going off. That's why clarified butter oil works a little bit better than unclarified butter. You see also too in the back I have a burner going on. That's just so that I have a lot of draw on my hood fan, so it operates better. There's the batter. You want enough to fill the bottom of the pan, but not make it too thick. You see I'm spreading it out there a little bit by hand. So it's roughly, I'd say probably about 1/2 centimeter deep. Now I'm going to be coming back and picking up the pan and swirling it around. I had to put something away here. Usually what you'd want to do is swirl it around a little bit faster. So you see how now there are bubbles forming in the top of that dough. There it is. There's the swirl. So that's just spreading out the batter into an even layer. But you can see already that there's bubbles forming there. That is the carbon dioxide from the fermentation expressing itself. And you want to see that. You want to see really deep bubbles in the surface. And you can see how from the edges the color changes, and it's a darker color. That means that the batter is getting cooked. Now, unlike injera, which is almost ready immediately, this actually needs a little bit more cooking after the color shifts. So once basically the top of the pancake loses its sheen, then you put on a lid just like that. So the remaining cooking on the top actually happens from the steam that's expressed by the pancake. Now, don't open this lid too often. You want to make sure that you basically leave it just as long as you've already been frying the pancake. So this is about the same amount of time that you've already spent.
In the background, you can see there I have some that I've left open, pancakes that I haven't folded, and then a few that I've folded up. The folded ones I've done because they didn't look as good, but they're used because you usually use that almost like a utensil, and the big nice flat ones are essentially what you put your different kinds of foods on when you're eating in this type of manner. There we go. So you can see how the lid looks a lot better. Now it's I'm just testing to see for doneness. At the edges, you can see how it's nice and crispy. And when it flipped up a little bit there, you can see it's nice and crunchy, a little bit crunchy on the bottom. I'm just loosing it from the pan completely, and then I'm letting it cook just a tad more, because when I pushed it, it was spongy, but it didn't bounce back really that quickly. You want it to bounce back fairly fast. And that's about it. I don't have the pancakes covered in the back because I'm putting new ones on top fairly quickly. But once you have them all cooked, what you want to do is put a cloth on them and serve them before they cool down. The texture changes a lot once they're cool, and it goes in the fridge. You can eat it still, and you can use it for other dishes. It just won't be as pliable for immediate serving. And there we go. Looks delicious.
We finished making the breads. Here it is. That amount of ingredients made 7 portions, so 7 whole plate sizes. You see, like pancakes regularly, the ones at the end are always better because the pan's hot and you're better at doing it. So yeah, they turned out really well. I'm really surprised. Actually, they gonna try a taste test here, so I can talk to you about it. I tried some already, but it has a real spongy chewiness, just like Injera does, but it's extremely sour because I had the sourdough starter, and I guess it got even more sour, so it has that sour rye flavor that's delicious, and because of the rye, it stays extremely moist. So Injera actually tastes a little drier. Now, the bottom though still is really nice and crisp, and that's the crisp that you get at the edge of rye bread, but you also get on the dosa, I guess. Maybe that's from the urad dal, or the as they're all known, mungo beans as well. It's really good. I can't wait to try it with other food in this cuisine, and you'll have to stay tuned till another recipe to see that though. This is delicious, and I'm sure I'm going to try something like this again. Till next time, keep cooking. Hey guys, thank you for sticking around all the way to the end of the video. Because you did, you get a bonus. Check this out. This is the recipe we're going to be making next week, and there's a little, basically a promo. It'll show you what it is. I think you might like this episode as well. And remember, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you get notifications. Later, everybody.